The morning sun barely touched the dirty sidewalk when 15-year-old Maya spread out her cardboard mat. Her fingers were already stained with dried paint, colors that wouldn't wash off no matter how hard she scrubbed. Blue mixed with yellow, red blended into purple. They were like permanent reminders of what her life had become. She arranged her paintings carefully against the brick wall. 5 pieces today. That's all she had left after yesterday's rain destroyed 3 of her best works. Each painting told a different story. A sunset over the ocean, a busy street filled with people, a lone tree standing strong in the wind. She hoped someone, anyone, would stop and look. 3 months ago, Maya didn't know anything about living on streets. She went to school like other kids. She had a bed to sleep in, hot meals, a mother who tucked her in at night. Life wasn't perfect, but it was safe. It was home, then everything fell apart. Her mother got sick, really sick. The kind of sick that doctors couldn't fix no matter how many medicines they tried. Maya watched her mom get weaker every day. The hospital bills piled up like mountains. Their small savings disappeared. Her mother fought hard, but some battles can't be won with just courage and hope. When her mother passed away, Maya felt like the ground beneath her feet had vanished. She was left with her 10-year-old brother, Carlos. Just the 2 of them against the world. Their father had left when Carlos was a baby. No goodbye, no explanation. He just never came home one day. They had no other family nearby. No grandparents. No aunts or uncles who could take them in. The social workers came with their clipboards and sad smiles. They talked about foster care, about finding good homes for both children, but then came the words that made Maya's heart stop. They might have to be separated. Different homes, different families, different lives. Maya couldn't let that happen. Carlos was all she had left. The only piece of her real family. The only person who remembered their mother's laugh, her favorite songs, the way she made pancakes on Sunday mornings. So Maya made a choice. A dangerous, desperate choice. They would survive on their own. She packed 2 backpacks with whatever clothes they could carry. She took the emergency money her mother had hidden in a coffee can. $230. That was their entire fortune. She held Carlos's hand and they walked out of their apartment before the social workers could return. The first few nights were the hardest. They slept in parks, under bridges, anywhere they could hide. Carlos cried himself to sleep, asking when they could go home. Maya didn't have an answer. She just held him tight and promised everything would be okay, even though she wasn't sure she believed it herself. Finding food was a constant struggle. The money ran out faster than Maya expected. A week's worth of cheap meals, some basic supplies, and suddenly they were down to their last $20. She needed a plan, something sustainable, something that could keep them alive. That's when she found the paints. There was a community center a few blocks from where they were staying. They offered free meals on Tuesdays and Thursdays. While waiting in line one day, Maya noticed boxes of donated items people were giving away. Old clothes, books, toys nobody wanted anymore. And there at the bottom of a cardboard box was a paint set. It wasn't anything fancy. Just basic acrylic paints about half used, some brushes with bent bristles. But Maya had always loved to draw. In school, art was her favorite class. Her teacher once said she had real talent, that she should never stop creating. Maya took the paints. She found discarded cardboard boxes behind grocery stores. She flattened them out, creating makeshift canvases. And she started to paint. Her first pieces were rough. She was out of practice and working with damaged materials. But there was something freeing about putting color on cardboard, about creating beauty in the middle of chaos. When she painted, she could forget about being hungry, forget about the fear that followed her everywhere. She remembered seeing street artists in the nicer parts of town. Tourists would stop and buy their work. Maybe, just maybe, she could do the same. So every morning, Maya set up her little gallery on the sidewalk. She chose a busy corner where people walked past on their way to work. She sat quietly, hoping someone would notice, hoping someone would care. Most people didn't even glance her way. They walked past like she was invisible, like her art was invisible. Sometimes a person would pause for half a second, then keep walking. A few tourists dropped coins into the paper cup she placed beside her paintings. Quarters mostly, sometimes a dollar bill. On a good day, she made $15. On bad days, nothing at all, but it was enough to buy bread. Enough for peanut butter and apples. Enough to keep Carlos fed, even if they both went to bed hungry most nights. Carlos stayed hidden during the day. Maya found an abandoned building 6 blocks away. It wasn't safe, but it had a roof and walls. She made Carlos promise to stay inside, to stay quiet, to never open the door for anyone except her. He was too young to understand why his sister spent all day sitting on dirty sidewalks, too young to fully grasp that they were now homeless. Every evening, Maya returned to their hiding place with whatever food she'd managed to buy. She'd paint by candlelight while Carlos slept, creating new pieces to replace the ones that sold. Her hands ached. Her back hurt from sitting on hard concrete all day, but she couldn't stop. Stopping meant starving. The other street kids warned her. A girl her age alone was vulnerable. Dangerous people looked for kids like her. She learned to stay alert, to trust no one, to keep a small knife hidden in her pocket, though she prayed she'd never need to use it. She learned which streets to avoid after dark, which shop owners would yell at her to move, which police officers would look the other way, and which ones would threaten to call social services. Maya became invisible in a city of millions. Just another forgotten kid with a dream too big for her circumstances. But every morning she spread out her cardboard mat. She arranged her paintings, and she hoped that maybe today would be different. Maybe today someone would see her. Really see her. Not as a homeless girl, not as a problem to be solved, but as an artist, as a human being who deserved a chance. The sun climbed higher in the sky. People rushed past on their way to important places. And Maya sat on her corner, paintbrush in hand, waiting for a miracle she wasn't sure would ever come. Weeks turned into a blur of the same routine. Wake up before sunrise, check on Carlos, make sure he had something to eat even if it was just stale bread. Then walk the 6 blocks to her corner with paintings tucked under her arm. Maya learned the rhythm of the streets like a song she never wanted to know. She knew that Mr. Chen, who owned the Chinese restaurant, came out at 7:30 to sweep his doorway. He never bothered her as long as she stayed away from his entrance. She knew the morning coffee crowd rushed past between 8 and 9, too busy checking their phones to notice a girl with paintings. The lunch crowd was different. They moved slower. Sometimes they'd glance at her work. Very rarely someone would stop and ask about a price. Those moments made Maya's heart race. She'd stumble over her words, never sure what to charge. Too much and they'd walk away. Too little and she couldn't afford to eat. She discovered that Tuesday mornings were best. Something about the start of the work week made people more generous. Fridays were hit or miss. Weekends brought tourists, which should have been good, but they usually just took photos of her paintings without buying anything. Maya started recognizing the regular faces. The woman in the gray coat who walked past at 8:15 every morning, always on her phone. The old man with the newspaper who sat on the bench across the street. The college students who laughed too loud and never seemed to notice anyone around them. None of them knew her name. None of them knew her story. She was just part of the background, like a fire hydrant or a streetlight, something that was always there but never really seen. She tried to make each painting special. She'd watch the sunrise and try to capture those colors, the way orange melted into pink then faded into blue. She painted the city skyline at different times of day. Morning light made the buildings look hopeful. Evening shadows made them look lonely. She painted from memory, too. The small garden her mother used to tend. The swing set at the park where Carlos used to play. But her favorite pieces were the portraits. She'd watch people walking past and try to catch something real about them. The tired eyes of a nurse heading home after a night shift. The excited bounce in a child's step on the way to school. The slouched shoulders of someone carrying invisible weight. Most of her portraits never sold. People didn't want to see struggle or sadness. They wanted pretty things, happy things, sunsets and flowers and smiling faces that didn't remind them of anything real. Then the weather changed. Maya woke one morning to the sound of rain drumming against the broken windows of their shelter. Her stomach dropped. Rain meant no customers. Rain meant no money. Rain meant going hungry. She tried to wait it out, but the rain kept coming. Day after day, the sky stayed gray and heavy. Water poured down in sheets that soaked through her only jacket. Her paintings, even the ones she tried to protect with plastic bags, got damaged. The cardboard warped and buckled. Colors ran together, turning her careful work into muddy messes. She salvaged what she could, but 3 of her best pieces were ruined. Hours of work destroyed by weather she couldn't control. She wanted to scream, to cry, to give up, but Carlos was depending on her. Giving up wasn't an option. The rain also meant fewer people on the streets. Those who did venture out hurried past with umbrellas, heads down, minds focused only on getting out of the wet. Nobody stopped to look at art. Nobody cared about paintings when they were trying to stay dry. Maya's cup stayed empty. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. The money she'd saved started disappearing. Food first. Then she needed to replace some of her painting supplies. A brush broke. She ran out of white paint, which she needed to mix other colors. By the end of the second week of rain, she counted their money with shaking hands. $8.47. That was everything. Every penny they had in the world. Carlos's cough started that same night. At first it was just a small thing. A tickle in his throat. But it got worse. Within 2 days he was coughing so hard his small body shook. His forehead felt hot to Maya's touch. Fever. She knew he needed medicine. Real medicine from a pharmacy. The kind that cost money they didn't have. She did the math in her head over and over, trying to make the numbers work. Medicine would cost at least $20. Maybe more. They had 8. Maya stayed up all night, painting by candlelight. Her hands cramped. Her eyes burned. But she pushed through, creating a new piece. She painted a single flower growing up through a crack in concrete. The flower was bright yellow, almost glowing. The concrete around it was gray and broken. She called it hope. Maybe it was too obvious, too simple, but it was honest. That flower was her and Carlos. Small and fragile, but still growing. Still fighting to survive in a world that wasn't made for them. The next morning, the rain finally stopped. Maya left Carlos with the last of their food and a promise that she'd be back soon with medicine. She carried her remaining 5 paintings to her corner. Hope sat in the front, still slightly damp. She waited. Morning turned to afternoon. A few people dropped coins in her cup. 35 cents, $1, 50 cents. It wasn't enough. Not even close. Maya felt something breaking inside her. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet crack like ice on a frozen lake. She'd been so strong for so long. She'd made impossible choices and somehow kept them both alive. But sitting there on that damp cardboard, watching thousands of people pass by without seeing her, she felt herself fading. Maybe the social workers were right. Maybe she couldn't do this. Maybe trying to keep Carlos with her was selfish. Maybe he'd be better off in a real home with real parents who could give him medicine when he got sick. Who could give him a warm bed and hot meals and a normal life? The thought made her chest hurt worse than hunger ever did. But what if she was failing him? What if her love wasn't enough? She looked down at her painting. That stupid hopeful flower. What was the point? Nobody wanted hope. Nobody wanted to see a girl and her broken dreams on a street corner. Maya put her head in her hands. Just for a minute. Just to gather herself. She couldn't let Carlos see her like this. Couldn't let him know how scared she really was. That's when she heard footsteps stop in front of her. Not the usual quick steps of someone passing by. These footsteps stopped and stayed stopped. Maya looked up slowly, afraid to hope. Afraid to even breathe. The woman standing in front of Maya's paintings wasn't like the usual people who passed by. She wore a professional dark blue suit, the kind that looked expensive but not flashy. Her hair was pulled back neatly. She carried a leather bag over one shoulder. But it was her eyes that caught Maya's attention. They weren't rushing past to the next thing. They were actually looking, really looking at the paintings. Maya quickly wiped her face, hoping her moment of weakness wasn't too obvious. She sat up straighter, trying to look more presentable. More like someone you'd want to buy art from. Not someone who'd been sleeping in an abandoned building. The woman moved slowly from one painting to the next. She studied the sunset piece for a long moment. Then the city skyline. She paused at a portrait Maya had done of an elderly woman feeding pigeons in the park. But she kept coming back to hope. The flower breaking through concrete. Maya's heart pounded. This felt different from the usual quick glances. This woman was actually considering buying something. Maya tried to calculate in her head. If she could sell even one painting for $20, she could get Carlos his medicine. They could eat tonight. They could survive another few days. The woman finally spoke. Her voice was warm, not the cold businesslike tone Maya expected. How much for this one? She pointed at Hope. Maya's throat went dry. This was always the hardest part. Name a price too high and the person walks away. Name it too low and you can't afford to eat. She'd learned that lesson the hard way when she sold a painting for $5. and realized later it wasn't even enough for dinner. She opened her mouth but couldn't make the words come out. What if she said the wrong thing? What if this was her only chance today and she ruined it? The woman seemed to notice her struggle. She didn't look impatient or annoyed. Instead, she knelt down, getting to Maya's level. Most adults never did that. They always looked down at her, literally and in every other way. "Whatever you think is fair," Maya finally managed to say. The words came out barely above a whisper. The woman shook her head gently. "No, I'm not asking what I think is fair. I'm asking what you think your art is worth." Something about the way she said it made Maya's eyes sting with tears she refused to let fall. When was the last time someone asked her what she thought? When was the last time someone treated her like her opinion mattered? Maya looked at her painting. At that flower she'd created in the middle of the night while Carlos coughed in his sleep. She'd poured everything into it. Her fear, her hope, her stubborn refusal to let the concrete win. $50, she said, and immediately wanted to take it back. That was too much. Way too much. The woman would laugh, would walk away, would tell her she was crazy for thinking cardboard and cheap paint was worth that kind of money. But the woman didn't laugh. She didn't even hesitate. She reached into her bag and pulled out her wallet. Maya watched in stunned silence as she counted out bills, 2 20s and a 10. She handed them to Maya like it was the most natural thing in the world. Maya stared at the money in her hand. $50. 50 actual dollars. She could get medicine. Real medicine from a pharmacy. She could buy food. Good food, not just bread and peanut butter. She could replace her broken paintbrushes. They could survive for at least another week, maybe 2 if she was careful. "Thank you," Maya whispered. The words felt too small for what she was feeling. The woman carefully picked up the painting, examining it more closely. "You have real talent. How long have you been painting?" Maya wasn't sure how to answer. Should she lie? Make up some story that sounded better than the truth? But something about this woman made lying feel wrong. "A few months. I mean, I drew in school before, but the painting, that's newer. You taught yourself?" Maya nodded. The woman looked at her with an expression Maya couldn't quite read. It wasn't pity. It was something else. Something that felt like respect. "What's your name?" the woman asked. "Maya. I'm Dr. Rodriguez, Elena Rodriguez. I run a community center on the other side of town." She said it casually, like she was just making conversation, like this was a normal meeting between 2 normal people. Maya didn't know what to say to that. A doctor? A community center? What did any of that have to do with her? Elena carefully rolled up the painting. "Do you come here every day?" "Most days. When it's not raining." "And you painted all of these?" "Yes, ma'am." Elena was quiet for a moment. She seemed to be thinking about something. Maya felt nervous under her gaze, like she was being examined. Not in a bad way, but in a way that made her feel seen. Actually seen. And that was terrifying and comforting at the same time. "Do you have family, Maya? Parents, someone taking care of you?" The question landed like a punch. Maya had gotten good at avoiding this topic. When people asked, she usually gave vague answers and changed the subject. But something about the gentle way Elena asked made the truth want to spill out. "I have a brother, Carlos. He's 10. Not a lie, but not the whole truth either. "And your parents?" Maya looked down at her paint-stained hands. "My mom passed away 3 months ago. My dad? He's not around." She waited for the next obvious question, the one about where she lived. About who was looking after them. About school. But Elena didn't push. She just nodded slowly, like she understood more than Maya had said. "Carlos, is he okay? Are you both okay?" The concern in her voice was too much. Maya felt her carefully built walls starting to crack. She thought about Carlos back at their shelter, coughing, feverish, asking when she'd be back. She thought about the $8.47 that had been all they had. She thought about how tired she was of being scared every single day. "He's sick," Maya heard herself say. "He has a fever and he's coughing. That's why I needed to sell something today. For medicine." Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her bag again and pulled out a small card. She held it out to Maya. "This is the address of my center. We have a youth program there. Art classes, but also other resources. Help for families going through difficult times." She paused. No strings attached. No obligations. Just, if you need something, if you need help, come by. Maya took the card. It felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in her hand. The center was called New Horizons. The address was written in neat print along with a phone number. I don't. Maya started, but she wasn't sure what she wanted to say. Part of her wanted to refuse, to say she didn't need help, that she could handle things on her own. But the truth was, she couldn't handle it. She was drowning and this woman was offering a rope. Just think about it, Elena said. She stood up, holding the rolled painting carefully. Your art is beautiful, Maya. But more than that, you're clearly a survivor. Sometimes survivors need a little support. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. She started to walk away, then turned back. And Maya, get your brother that medicine, then come see me. Tomorrow, if you can. Bring Carlos with you. Bring your paintings. Maya watched her disappear into the crowd. She looked down at the $50 in one hand and the card in the other. For the first time in 3 months, something that felt like hope started growing in her chest. It was scary. Terrifying, actually. What if this was a trick? What if accepting help meant losing Carlos? What if Elena was just like all the other adults who made promises they didn't keep? But what if she wasn't? What if this was real? Maya carefully folded the money and put it in her pocket along with the card. She gathered her remaining paintings and headed to the pharmacy. Carlos needed medicine, that was the first step. Then tomorrow, if she could gather enough courage, maybe she'd find new horizons. Maybe she'd let someone help them. Maybe that flower, breaking through concrete, wasn't just about surviving anymore. Maybe it was about growing toward something better. Maya walked into the pharmacy, clutching the $50 like it might disappear if she loosened her grip. The bright fluorescent lights made her squint after spending all day in natural sunlight. Everything looked too clean, too organized, too much like a world she no longer belonged to. A young woman at the counter looked up from her computer. Can I help you? Maya approached slowly, suddenly aware of how she must look. Her clothes hadn't been properly washed in weeks. Her hair was tangled. Her hands were permanently stained with paint. She probably smelled like the streets. I need cough medicine. And something for fever. For a kid. He's 10. The pharmacist's expression softened. Is it a wet cough or dry cough? Maya hadn't thought about that. Wet, I think. He's been coughing a lot and it sounds rough. The woman nodded and walked to one of the aisles. She came back with 2 bottles. This one is for the cough. This one will help with the fever. Make sure he drinks plenty of water. And if the fever gets worse or lasts more than 3 days, he should see a doctor. Maya's stomach clenched at that last part. A doctor meant money they didn't have, meant questions she couldn't answer. But she just nodded and paid for the medicine. $23. She had 27 left. Enough for food. Enough to keep them going a little while longer. She stopped at a small grocery store on the way back. Real food this time. Soup that she could heat up. Crackers. Oranges for vitamin C. Bottles of water. She even bought a chocolate bar for Carlos. He used to love chocolate before everything fell apart. When she got back to their shelter, Carlos was curled up in the corner on their pile of blankets. His face was flushed with fever. The coughing had gotten worse. Maya's heart broke seeing him like this, so small, so sick, so young to be living this way. Hey, she said softly, kneeling beside him. I brought medicine. Carlos opened his eyes. They looked glassy and tired. Did you sell a painting? I did, a big one. She held up the medicine bottles like trophies. And I got us real food too, soup, and something special for you. She gave him the chocolate bar and his face lit up, despite how awful he felt. That smile, even a weak one, made every horrible moment worth it. Maya gave him the medicine with water, then heated up soup using their small camping stove. They ate together while she told him about the woman who bought her painting. She left out the part about the card, about New Horizons. She wasn't sure yet if she'd go. That night, after Carlos finally fell asleep with a full stomach and medicine in his system, Maya pulled out Elena's card. She read it over and over by candlelight. New Horizons Community Center, youth programs, resources for families. What kind of resources? Would they ask too many questions? Would they call social services? Would they take Carlos away from her? But Elena had seemed different. She hadn't looked at Maya with pity or judgment. She'd looked at her like a person, like someone whose opinion mattered, like someone worth helping. Maya barely slept that night. Her mind spun with possibilities and fears. By the time morning came, she'd made a decision. They'd go. Not because she trusted easily, not because she believed everything would magically get better, but because Carlos deserved more than this. He deserved a chance. Getting Carlos ready took longer than usual. The medicine had helped, but he was still weak. Maya cleaned them both up as best as she could with bottled water and the soap she'd managed to save. She combed through Carlos's hair with her fingers, made sure their clothes were the cleanest ones they had. The bus ride to the other side of town used up $2. Maya counted every penny, trying to calculate if this trip was worth it. What if they got there and it was nothing? What if Elena had forgotten about her already? New Horizons was bigger than Maya expected. It was a 2-story building painted in warm yellow with blue trim. Through the windows she could see bright artwork on the walls. She heard music playing, laughter. It looked happy, like a place where good things happened. Maya stood outside for a full 5 minutes holding Carlos's hand. She could still turn back. Could go back to their corner, back to what she knew, even if what she knew was hard. "Is this where we're going?" Carlos asked. His voice was hoarse from coughing. "Yeah, I think so. It looks nice." Those 2 simple words from her little brother gave Maya the courage she needed. She pushed open the door. The inside was even warmer than the outside. The walls were covered with paintings and drawings, clearly made by kids. There were comfortable couches in the lobby, plants in the corners, a bulletin board full of colorful flyers about different programs. A young man sat at the front desk. He looked up and smiled. "Hi there. Welcome to New Horizons. First time here?" Maya nodded, suddenly unable to speak. "That's awesome. What brings you in today?" Maya fumbled for the card in her pocket. "Dr. Rodriguez, Elena Rodriguez. She told me to come by." The man's smile grew wider. "Oh, you must be Maya. Elena told me to watch for you. She's with a class right now, but she said to bring you up as soon as you arrived. Come on, I'll show you." He knew her name. Elena had been expecting her, had told other people about her. Maya wasn't sure if that made her feel better or more nervous. They followed him up the stairs. The second floor had several rooms with open doors. In one, Maya could see teenagers working on pottery. In another, a group was learning guitar. Music drifted out into the hallway. The man stopped at a doorway. Inside, about 10 kids sat at easels, painting. Elena stood in the middle of them, offering gentle guidance and encouragement. She wore casual clothes today, jeans and a paint-splattered shirt. Her hair was in a ponytail. "Elena," the man called out. "Maya's here." Elena turned and her whole face brightened. She immediately walked over, wiping paint from her hands onto her shirt. "Maya, you came, and this must be Carlos." She knelt down to Carlos's level, just like she'd done with Maya. "Hi, Carlos, I'm Elena. Your sister told me you haven't been feeling well. How are you doing today?" Carlos glanced at Maya, unsure. She nodded, letting him know it was okay to talk. "A little better. The medicine helped." "That's good. Are you hungry? We have snacks downstairs. And I think there are juice boxes in the fridge." Before Maya could say anything, Elena stood and gestured to someone in the hallway. A woman appeared, middle-aged with kind eyes and wearing a colorful sweater. "This is Patricia. She's one of our family support coordinators." Elena looked at Maya. "I thought maybe Carlos could hang out with her for a bit, get some food, maybe watch a movie in our rec room, while you and I talk. If that's okay?" Maya's protective instincts flared. She didn't want to let Carlos out of her sight. But he looked at her with hopeful eyes. He probably wanted normal things, snacks, juice boxes, movies, things other kids got to have. "It's okay," Carlos whispered to her. "I'll be fine." Maya swallowed hard and nodded. Patricia reached out her hand to Carlos. "Come on, buddy. Let's see what we've got in the kitchen." As they walked away, Maya felt panic rising. What if this was a mistake? What if they were separating them? Elena seemed to sense her fear. Hey, Carlos is safe here, I promise. Patricia has 2 kids of her own. She's wonderful, and you can go get him any time you want. Maya's hands were shaking. Elena gently guided her into a small office just off the art room. It was cluttered with papers and more artwork. A coffee maker sat on a shelf. Books were stacked everywhere. Sit, Elena said, pointing to a comfortable chair. Take a breath. You did something really brave by coming here. Maya sat but couldn't relax. What happens now? Elena pulled up another chair and sat across from her. Not behind a desk. Not in a position of authority. Just face to face like equals. Now, Elena said gently, you tell me what you need, and we figure out how to help. Maya sat in that comfortable chair staring at her paint-stained hands. Elena's question hung in the air between them. What do you need? Such a simple question. But Maya had spent 3 months pretending she didn't need anything. Pretending she could handle everything alone. The words started slowly, carefully, like she was testing the weight of each one before letting it out. We've been on our own since my mom died. There's no one else. Just me and Carlos. Elena listened without interrupting, without that look adults usually got. The one that said they were already planning what to do with you instead of actually hearing you. I know we can't live like this forever. I know it's not safe. But the social workers wanted to separate us. Different foster homes. And I couldn't. Maya's voice cracked. He's all I have left. He's the only family I've got. Where have you been staying? Maya hesitated. This was the kind of information that usually led to phone calls and police and everything falling apart. But she'd come this far. An abandoned building. It's not much, but it has walls and a roof. I keep Carlos there during the day. It's safer than the streets. Elena's expression didn't change to shock or horror. She just nodded, processing the information. And you've been painting to make money for food. Yeah, it's not much, but it's something. Some days are better than others. Maya, what you've been doing is incredible. Taking care of your brother. Finding a way to survive, not giving up. That takes enormous strength. Elena leaned forward slightly. But you shouldn't have to do this alone. And I want you to know that getting help doesn't mean losing Carlos. There are ways to keep you together. Maya looked up sharply. What kind of ways? There's a lawyer who volunteers with us. Her name is Mrs. Kim. She specializes in cases involving siblings in the system. She helps families stay together. Elena pulled out a notebook. And there are options. Emergency housing. Programs for teens who are taking care of younger siblings. It's not perfect and it takes time, but you have choices. Choices. Maya had forgotten that word existed. For 3 months, every decision had been about immediate survival. There was no choosing. There was only doing whatever it took to make it through another day. What would I have to do? First, talk to Mrs. Kim. Let her understand your situation. She'll explain your legal options. Then we look at immediate needs. Safe housing. Making sure Carlos stays healthy. Getting you both proper meals. Elena paused. And there's the art program here. You clearly have talent, Maya, real talent. I'd like you to join our advanced group. We meet 3 times a week. Maya's mind was spinning. It all sounded too good, too easy. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. Elena smiled softly. I know enough. I know you love your brother enough to live on the streets to keep him safe. I know you're resourceful and brave. I know you create beautiful art even when everything else in your life is falling apart. She paused. And honestly, I've been where you are. Not exactly the same, but close enough. When I was 16, my family fell apart. I ended up in the system. I was one of the lucky ones who found people who believed in me, who helped me get through it. That's why I do this work, to be for other kids what someone once was for me. Maya felt tears building but refused to let them fall. She'd cried enough. But hearing that Elena understood, really understood, made something loosen in her chest. Can I think about it? About all of this? Of course. But Maya, while you're thinking, I need you to let us help with the basics. Food, at least. We have a food pantry. Take some groceries home today. And medical care. We have a clinic that partners with us, no charge. Let's get Carlos checked by a real doctor. Make sure that cough is nothing serious. Maya wanted to refuse. Wanted to say she could handle it. But the truth was she couldn't, and Carlos deserved better than her pride. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." The rest of that day felt like a dream. Elena introduced her to Mrs. Kim, who didn't look at all like Maya expected a lawyer to look. She was young, wore jeans, and spoke in a way that made complicated legal things sound understandable. She explained that there were programs designed specifically for situations like Maya's. That being 15 didn't mean she had no rights. That keeping siblings together was actually a priority for many judges. Carlos got checked by a nurse practitioner who said his cough was bronchitis but treatable. She gave them better medicine and made Carlos laugh with silly jokes. He seemed lighter somehow, less worried. They left New Horizons that evening with bags of groceries, medicine, information packets, and something Maya hadn't felt in months: actual hope. Over the following weeks, things slowly started to change. Maya met with Mrs. Kim regularly. They filed paperwork, talked to social workers who actually listened, found emergency housing and a transitional program for teens with dependents. It wasn't fancy, just a small room with 2 beds, but it was warm and safe and legal. Maya joined the art program at New Horizons. 3 times a week, she painted with other young artists who didn't judge her story, who just saw her talent. Elena taught her new techniques, introduced her to different styles, challenged her to dig deeper in her work. Carlos thrived in the after-school program. He made friends. He did homework with tutors. He laughed again, really laughed, the way he used to before everything fell apart. Maya's art got better, not just technically but emotionally. She painted what she knew now: struggle and survival, but also hope and transformation. Her pieces started selling at local galleries that partnered with New Horizons. The money went into a trust fund for her future, for college maybe, for possibilities she'd stopped letting herself imagine. 1 year later, Maya stood in a real art gallery, not on a street corner, not on cardboard. A real gallery with white walls and proper lighting and people in nice clothes sipping wine. It was her first solo exhibition. 15 paintings hung on the walls, each telling part of her story. The centerpiece was the largest canvas she'd ever worked on. It showed a girl sitting on a sidewalk, paintbrush in hand. But instead of people walking past ignoring her, there were hands reaching down, offering help, offering hope. The hands weren't pulling her up. They were reaching to join her, to be with her in that moment. She'd titled it, "The Stranger Who Stopped." Elena stood beside her, looking at the painting with pride. "You did this, Maya. You created all of this." Maya shook her head. "No, we did this. You stopped when everyone else kept walking. You saw me when I was invisible. That changed everything. I just opened a door. You walked through it." Carlos ran up to them, excited. He was taller now, healthier. He wore clean clothes that actually fit. "Maya, someone just bought the sunset painting." "The big one." Maya smiled. She didn't paint for survival anymore. She painted because she had something to say. Because art was her voice. Because the girl who once sat invisible on a street corner had become someone worth listening to. She looked around the gallery at the people studying her work, at the red sold stickers appearing next to her pieces, at Carlos's happy face, at Elena, who believed in her when she'd stopped believing in herself. One person's choice to stop, to see, to help, had created ripples that kept spreading. Maya had learned that accepting help wasn't weakness, that asking for support wasn't giving up, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone care about you. She thought about that flower painting, the one that started everything, hope breaking through concrete. That's what her life had become. The concrete hadn't disappeared. The cracks were still there, but she'd grown through them anyway. And now she was blooming. Elena squeezed her shoulder gently, ready to talk to some buyers. Maya took a deep breath and nodded. She was ready. Ready to tell her story, ready to show the world that survival was just the beginning, that on the other side of impossible circumstances, there could be art and hope and a future worth fighting for. She'd learned that one stranger's kindness could restore not just faith in humanity, but faith in yourself. And now, through her art, she was paying that forward, showing other invisible kids that they were worth seeing, worth helping, worth everything. The gallery was full of people, but Maya no longer felt invisible. She'd found her voice through paint and canvas, and the world was finally listening.